And we're back. And if you're joining us right now, we're just getting our second conversation for this morning started. And we are talking about a grant fund call for proposals in the agricultural industry. And here to talk all about that, we are joined by Dr. Osman Martinez, who is the CEO of the Ministry of Economic Development, as well as Neri Sams, who is Interim Program Manager from Resilient Rural Belize. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
Good morning.
And thank you for joining us. It's a great opportunity to get to learn all about this interesting initiative. Let's start by giving just a little bit of background and context as to how this call came about.
Okay, it's an agriculture initiative, and it has to do due to the changes that the farmers are experiencing, the drought, the intense rains and the flooding, and of course the assistance that they need to help them manage better their crops, use innovative methods, resilient practices, work as a group, because we know the effort of working as a group, the multiplier effect, and also to allow us to produce for local consumption for the tourism industry and all that. So this program helps the farmers from obtaining seeds all the way to marketing. Yes, and it does so in groups of farmers, formal groups or not formal groups, right?
Let's talk about the matching grant formula that we've been seeing a lot more recently in different ministries, where oftentimes there is a grant released to people to be able to pursue a particular project or idea. This time around, you're asking for a financial or in-kind commitment. Explain it for us.
Well, this is a bit, the equation that is being used is a little bit different and I would say innovative. No? The reason is that we will be dealing with different farmers, it's not only one. And these are farmers that fall within the MSMEs, the micro, small, and medium size enterprises, which also you have to consider that they have different mentality.
Yeah.
They have different way of thinking. And at the same time, we're giving them the opportunity to have their own input, but not only input as to say, I like A, B, or C, but also as to have ownership in what we're doing. Many of times, governments have come up with very good ideas, but no one takes ownership. Why? Because they have never had the opportunity to invest. And so, in this case, this program has between 10 and 15% contribution from the beneficiaries, which will help them to have that ownership. What we are looking for is sustainable projects. We have many projects throughout the history of Belize, projects that are very good, but they have never been sustainable. And the question is it the government's fault or is it everyone's fault?
Yeah.
And at some point, all of us have to take responsibility.
Yeah. So it's the idea of getting the ownership of the project or concept that they're working with.
Correct.
I see you shaking your head here. Tell me about your experience, why this is important.
Correct. It starts from the design of the business plan.
Yeah.
A SWOT analysis is conducted with the members of the group, and we learn their strengths, weaknesses, any threats, and it's done in 3 areas: marketing, production, and the organizational structure. I know some of our POC members are keen that we not only invest in the production and equipments, but that the group know how to work together and what they are in it for in the long haul, right? And coming up with the contribution, it's their decision how they want to do that.
Yeah.
They can say, we will use from our fields the investments to contribute my 1,000 if that's what we need to contribute.
Yeah.
So far, we haven't had a group that has requested a loan, but we are also making that available by working with the credit unions. Should the farmer need a small loan to assist with their counterpart, In terms of cash, then we support them with a letter and their business plan to the credit union or DFC or National Bank, so that then they can get that support.
Does the match for the funds have to be financial?
10% is cash and 5% is in-kind labor.
Okay.
That's for the larger formal groups.
Okay.
And the not formal groups, it's total 10%, 5 and 5.
Okay.
5% cash, 5% in-kind.
Yeah.
And when we do that, the farmers work with us as to how their interjection of funds will be presented.
Yeah.
So it's phased in. They don't have to have the full 10% when the business plan is signed or the agreement is signed.
Okay.
We work it with phase with them.
So you help them identify where they'll be able to get it from,
Yes.
to be able to contribute towards a project.
Correct.
Oh, nice.
And may I add here, the most important part is, say for example, the program comes up to $100,000. 10% in kind would be $10,000. But if you have, say for example, 20 members within the association, then you end up dividing the 20 by 10, you know, which is just a small portion that each farmer will have. Now imagine small farmers owning 5-10 acres of land and having access to a good road, having access to a good storage facility, to irrigation system, to greenhouses. This on itself will actually be introducing science and technology, something that they won't be able to afford on their own. At the same time, the objective is to increase the yield, to reduce the operational costs, and at the same time to be able to compete with the quality of the product, you know, the appearance of the product, which is essential for the development of the agro producers. Normally, the agro producers in Belize have a competitor, a phenomenon which is contraband. Yeah, and that is a huge enemy, you know, for the development of the agro producers. And so it is important to understand that by them being able even to compete by eliminating contraband, because we can eliminate contraband with two main phases. One is quality of the product, and two with price. So, for example, if the fuel is cheaper in Belize, why would you go over to Chetumal to fuel? You know, right? So we don't need to enforce our borders. It's just a matter of being able to compete locally. And so this will give the farmers the opportunity to be able to, one, transport their, be able to bring out their product out of their farms. Because the farmers' road had been abandoned for many years. If you go to Nagobank, Trio, Copen, San Carlos, I mean, the farmers actually had to make adjustments onto their vehicles. Their vehicles look like the monster trucks, you know, and this is not healthy for their economy, because every time they would go in and bring out, get their product out, they will also have to make a stop at the mechanic shop.
Yeah.
Because that vehicle was never designed to be a monster truck. It was designed to be a regular vehicle.
You know, and let's just get some clarification there, because we hear very often where government representatives talk about fixing the sugar roads, but there are kind of like the main thoroughfares, but then you have the roads that are actually within your own property, which is hard to maintain.
Yes, I mean, I think it has the Ministry of Infrastructure, in this case, ministry that falls under the Minister Honorable Julius Espat and his CEO, Victor Espat. I believe they have done a fantastic job in helping to maintain these roads with limited resources. It is a challenge indeed, you know, to go on to the private roads. You know?
Yeah.
These are no longer considered secondary, not even tertiary roads. These are actually private.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, we need to have an enhanced mechanism to help our producers if we are serious about growing our economy and growing not only on nominal GDP, but on real GDP. And that, in effect, will have, it will increase will reduce the gap between the inequality of the distribution of wealth, reduce poverty, create employment. And so it has a domino effect once that investment is done.
And that was actually that was gonna be my question, because we had earlier spoken a little bit about the sustainability and resilience element, but I was also interested to know that takes into account growth as well, right? So that eventually the farmers will be more empowered. And can you talk a little bit about that aspect, the growth and development of the rural that we hope to achieve by this?
Okay, so our program works with 8 commodities. We have 6 vegetables, 1 fruit, and honey. So a business plan can have 2 or 3 of these commodities. And it's important to work with the farmers with a planting schedule, because as we see with the onions, you can try and store the onion, and there has to be good communication so that we know what's the volume to be produced and when it will be ready. So we will facilitate that, and of course we work very closely with the Ministry of Agriculture, the extension officers, so that we know the farmers who are producing. And Kaya does produce onion, sweet pepper, tomato, everything like that, similar to Corozal. So there has to be this networking, communication to enable the farmers not to have this overproduction and then price going down. So we have to find a mechanism to really master that.
Or wastage,
Or add value by processing. So if a group would like to add value, that's also, we can fund also that aspect for them.
This is also an area I know very clearly that you're trying to introduce climate resilient options for the agriculture sector. Now, my question is, are you also offering the technical expertise for this? Because, you know, whether it's changing climate, changing in weather patterns, it feels like the obstacles being thrown at the sector are unpredictable already.
Correct.
Well, yes, and the technical aspect will definitely be included. Actually, there is a component, you know, to help with technical assistance.
Correct.
In addition to that, I have the opportunity to work with the international funding institutions, the IFIs, and they are always willing to help us with consultants, consultants that will be paid by the IFIs. And I think this also brings a great opportunity to bring this technical assistance. One of the main elements on the success of the equation for any producer is that we need to acknowledge that we need to increase their human capital. And that is something that a component that the government has acknowledged. We will definitely take advantage of all the technical support that the IFIs are giving to us. The Ministry of Agriculture have a wealth of knowledge and huge high human capital, and we need to see how we can use them as well. No? In addition, we work along with the Ministry of Agriculture, but also with the Ministry of Infrastructure, because they are the ones responsible to build this road. These roads have to be climate resilient. They have to have proper drainage, and they are the ones who will be overseeing the supervision. Why? Because at the end they will be the ones responsible to maintain these roads. So we work hand in hand with them, and I can tell you that the investment is not small. I mean, 1 mile of road is very expensive. It's between $200,000 to almost $400,000 Belize dollars per mile, and that depends on the area, no?
Yeah.
It depends where if the materials that we need are nearby, then that reduces the cost. If not, we will have to transport that materials from a distance that it will cost us more.
Yeah, adds on transportation costs as well.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So what are you hoping? I know right now it's kind of just an expression of interest phase. You're hoping people will come to you with ideas and pursue these particular funds. But what are you imagining are going to be some of the projects that will fit?
Okay, we already have identified 15 groups of farmers.
Okay.
Right? And we have already, through the Program Oversight Committee, approved 4 business plans. In the process of approving a couple more. So we need the farmers to come forward through the Ministry of Agriculture's offices, and we do have an extension officer assigned to each district. We have the form, they express interest, and we can also assist them to complete that proposal form, right? Then that is the deadline to submit is the end of November. So we compile all that and we will go through a screening, and 15 will be selected. And we anticipate that they can ask for anything from seed improvement to drainage and irrigation to cover structures to solar pumps to a facility to process fruits
To do value added.
marketing. So any aspect within that chain that the farmer needs assistance in any of the 8 commodities that we're dealing with.
Nice. Or even the cold storage, I think you had mentioned,
Exactly.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe we know the farmers can produce. What they need is to have a longer period of supplying the market. So once we can do a good practice of harvesting the proper way and then storing, that we believe can assist the farmers to then increase their income and be able to use their funds in any other activity that they so choose. Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
based on perhaps what you're hearing from the farmers, is there perhaps 1 or 2 things in particular that perhaps is common and that they're talking about they need the most, or is it or are the needs more or less spread out evenly based on all the things that you kind of mentioned, from processing to seeds to roads, or is there more need in one area than the other?
It's would say like specialized. For example, with the hot pepper, because we would really like to help them. Presently, they're not practicing a nursery facility to raise their seedlings. So that we can see is a weakness that they have. They're starting already on the wrong foot with their seedlings. Most of them plant in slash and burn area, which is not a problem. However, the mechanization then is not possible, and putting in the drainage so that water can then leave the land when it rains torrentially. So improving the irrigation and drainage for majority is required. Some would like to have the structures because they want to produce this high quality sweet pepper. Some wants to know if there is a tomato variety that can be grown in this structure, and what does that mean, and what other practices they have to have to ensure, because sometimes you need pollination, otherwise you don't get any fruits. Right?
So these specific commodities were chosen based on what?
In the design, the Ministry of Agriculture had a long list, and we are told that they reduced to these 8 commodities as priority for the ministry.
Because they've had challenges, or because they have so much prospects?
Both.
Okay.
It is both, and we need to understand that yes, we can produce in Belize, but we will not be able to produce everything.
Yeah.
So the vegetables and fruits that are acclimatized to be produced in Belize and that have shown that our producers can produce. So we need to support those fields and support those farmers who are producing certain products. Economics teaches that every country it has to be specialized. And, we have a comparative advantages in certain products while we have disadvantage on others. And from what I understand is that the 8 products that were selected were actually that criteria was used, where we have that comparative advantage.
Nice. Definitely honey. I know we've talked to some of the honey producers on World Bee Day, and there seems to be great promise in the area. I guess it's just getting people to overcome their fear of bees.
Yeah, because of the introduction of the Africanized one with European.
Yeah.
That's right.
And other areas. So we're talking about cabbage, carrots, hot pepper, onion,
Sweet pepper, tomato, pineapple, and then honey. Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Also, in our in the RRB, we have technical support in climate agriculture. We have in marketing, and we have an officer responsible for the organizational component of the groups. So we provide all this assistance to all groups that we engage with.
Okay.
Right.
So what is the interest you're getting from the farmers at this point?
Yes, the farmers want us to help them, and we will have limited funds. So, yeah, that's one of the drawbacks. But if we do a very good job, then I'm sure CEO can more
Well, you
assistance
know.
and
She put me.
You'll have to find the funds if there's
Yeah.
some great projects out there.
I was put in this pattern in public now.
Yeah, live on TV. So your answer here is?
Yeah, of course. I mean,
Yeah.
that is, I believe the IFIs, in this case IFAD, which is an entity with in Italy, along with Green Climate Fund, GCF, they are ready to help Belize. Our problem has been implementation. We have failed in implementing projects. So, for example, this project started back in 2018. Actually, it was signed in December of 2018, and the first disbursement came a few months after 2018, and practically we are just getting the project on to run. And so we have 20 million US dollars that have been sitting there.
Yeah.
We need to pump that thing into the beneficiaries, which are the producers.
Yeah.
Pump it into the ecosystem that will help with the growth of GDP and real GDP, which is important. And it's a way to stimulate the economy.
And do we, when you talk about GDP growth and stimulation of the economy, do we, or how, how do I put it, percentage or of the economy as a whole does the sector then are we working with? How much do they contribute, and how much do we hope that we project that they might?
Okay, so that's a very good question. Before I answer your question, allow me just to give you one piece of data which is very important. So IDB, which is the International Development Bank, Inter-American Development Bank, they did a study which shows that, for example, Belize have 98% of the businesses fall within the MSMEs, and 2% are considered large enterprises. And the government had focused on the 2%, and they have forgotten about the 98%. And this is not a problem that only Belize has, but it's a problem that during that study, they cite in Latin America and the Caribbean. And countries with a developing economy actually face the same problem. We forgot about the MSMEs. So this is a great opportunity now to see that the Briceño administration and through Plan Belize are promoting that we will invest within the MSMEs and support them. In my personal opinion, the MSMEs should be the backbone of Belize's economy. And so your question is, as Ms. Neri says, we actually have limited funds. The impact will be maybe between 3 to 5% of the MSMEs. We have around 44,000 businesses that fall within the MSMEs. Our impact will be maybe 25, 30 of them the most, no?
the most 30.
Yeah, the most
Yeah.
30. So it's very limited. But we are hoping that this is the start of great things in the future.
You noted earlier that the failure was implementation.
Yes.
What have you identified to be the cause, and how have you corrected that?
The process is a bit frustrating since the procurement processes are very long. I have had the privilege, and I'm blessed and honored that I have been able to have direct communication with the IFIs. And so the procurement process on the IFIs it takes quite some time. Then we have another problem that locally we also have a part of our procurement process that have to go through the Contractor General and the Ministry of Finance, which also takes some time, but that had improved significantly. And so we are making great steps. But that is just part of the problem. The other part of the problem is want to do it, have the interest to do it. Because at the end, we have to understand that we are here to serve the people. And if we are not serious about doing it, it won't be done. So even if a procurement process takes about 100 years, if we start it, then the 100 years will come to an end. but I have inherited some projects that, 3 projects, for example. One of them was very well on its way, road safety, but CABE and which is the Integral Security Program, and IFAD, which is the RRB, and between both of them, we have 100 million Belize dollars, and that those projects weren't moving any at all.
Yeah.
And CABE, for example, which is for the Integral Security Program, that program was developed in 2010. In 2015, it was signed, and the first disbursement came in, and that's a $60 million project, 60 million Belize dollars. And in 2018, $3.8 million were disbursed, of which, up to when I came in to take over the office of the Ministry of Economic Development, only monies for salaries were used. So, so we have to identify what is the problem. But one of the problems is procurement process, and 2, that we want to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes projects like that become reliant on the drivers behind it. So this is, I'm glad that you're able to acknowledge where the failure to implement has taken place before, and that gives you an opportunity moving forward to be able to mitigate them early on. One of the things I know with this particular project is that you don't have to be a registered farmer in this area to apply. So how do I get involved? I mean, you have to have some level of expertise, right? I can't wake up today and say, I know how to grow tomatoes or pineapple.
Well, the registered part is the group.
Okay.
So you can have 8 different households, farmers in one area, and they do one thing common. They market together. So they are an informal group or a non-registered group.
Yeah.
And we can work with those farmers.
Okay.
Their benefits are maximum 60,000 Belize dollars. Now, if you have a cooperative and you have 30 members, 17 members, the volume that we can support you with is up to 240,000 Belize dollars.
Okay.
Right? So the other important thing to that is the Ministry of Agriculture has registered majority of the farmers in the country. And if we come across any farmer that is not registered, we encourage them, or we start the process for them to be registered. And what that does is it provides us a lot of information that can be used for projections and for statistics and for any type of analysis that the country needs to do. So this BAMES data, actually our managing information system has that as the backbone. So if we get 10 members in a group, we determine if there are registered farmers by simply placing their name into the system, and we get all their information at one go once they're registered. If they're not, then we can request if they want to, and then help them to register, right? And then they would be a part of the entire BAMES, right? And any exercises, any benefits that can come to farmers, if you are registered, it brings that to you. If you're not registered, then you fall through the...
Or even things like after storms, they know where to go and who to follow up with to see what happens.
Yes. And that has happened twice or 3 times.
With the
lately.
floods.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember. So that's a key opportunity there too.
Correct.
So let's talk about where people go if they want to express interest.
Okay, it's at all the district agriculture offices in each district. We have left the proposal there. We have spoken with the district agriculture coordinator to record for us the interested farmer group. And we have extension officers who will then liaise with the farmer group, arrange meetings, and start assisting them to fill out the proposals.
Good.
Right. So we will provide that assistance to do that.
You know, one point that I want to mention is when we fail to spend monies from the projects, we lose a golden opportunity because we fail to bring in fresh money into our economic system. And so actually we are still using monies from 2015, but for example, GCF, they have allocated 500 million US dollars for developing nations. And when we fail to spend monies that have been given to us, that means that other developing nations will have the opportunity to take advantage of these monies.
Yeah.
And so we will still have like old monies rather than
Tied to other projects.
rather than get new monies. And so, and before the IFIs, we actually have to increase our reputation, because report shows, a study shows that 99.9% of our projects have failed, meaning that they are always asking for extension. And sometimes the extension is not an option, which means that the projects will have to come to an end incompleted, and we would have to send money back.
Yeah.
You know, and that
And then when you apply again, they think you don't really need it because you didn't use it last time.
we have to understand that we are dealing with people that are very good with numbers.
Yeah.
And so they will do evaluations for every 10 years. So if they were giving us, say for example, 10 million US every year, and our capacity of spending was only 5 million, then they will say, I will only give you 5 million, even if we would have submitted a proposal for the same 10 million.
Yeah.
And then when we ask why, they will say, well, the historical data shows that your capacity of spending is only 5 million.
Yeah.
So why should I give you more?
Yeah.
And this is where Belize have failed.
Because there are needs all over the world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And there are limited funds.
Yeah.
So in that aspect, you know, it is important to note that we are paying special attention. I know that with Minister Christopher Koyi and the Prime Minister, we are looking closely at the public sector investment programs, you know, and how the spendings are going, the different projects. So that is one thing that we want to assure the Belizean population, that we are working very hard to gain that confidence back from the IFIs.
Yeah. Right.
So I've said what we will invest in, but we
Yes.
can also not invest in purchasing the land for the farmers, or we would not invest in any environmental activity that can have a problem. So those are the two main, or pay a loan for the farmers group.
Yes.
3 things we can't do
All
with
right.
the funds.
Definitely clarified there. Well, thank you both for coming in. And of course, we wish you the best of luck. Would love to hear about the projects that do follow through. And, you know, especially if you want to bring samples, even better. Right?
Of course. Allow me just to, I want to say thank you to the team at RRB,
Yeah.
the administration, the
Resilient
technical-
Rural Belize.
Yes, the administrators, the technical and the extension officer. I think they are doing a fantastic job, and we have a huge challenge ahead of us, but I have my full confidence that this project will be successful.
All right.
Yeah. And then last, Marlene, please.
Yes,
We have to
Kelly.
encourage females, women to join the groups, and youth. We will be giving extra points if a group that is presented to us, as in women, and having youth. Youth ages 15 to 24.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
they'll be getting more points.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming in and giving us this update.
Thank you.
Thanks
All right.
to you all.
We're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about a special focus on mental health, a forum that's taking place today through the Ministry of Labor. Please stay tuned.